Welcome to our workshop, Life, Stress, COVID and Me, which is part of the workshops for Stride, supporting our service users during this very difficult time. I'm thrilled to be joined by Positive East Counselling Coordinator, Andre Smith. Andre joined Positive East in 2009, and he now feels that this line of work is his soul's calling. He's helped support literally hundreds of clients cope with the stress of everyday living. And today he's here to talk about how we can manage stress, especially as we're facing another lockdown. He's a qualified clinical hypnotherapist and holistic masseur and a reflexologist as well. Andre, it's great to have you with us. How are you doing today?
All things considered, considering I've got to deliver a workshop on stress, I'm not so stressed. So I'm hoping this feeling is going to stay with me for the duration. I'm doing good. Thank you, Greg. Yeah.
So before we start, you've got a really exciting presentation lined up for us with loads of tools and techniques we can use to help us cope with the stress, particularly during this very difficult time. Can you tell us before we start a bit about your role in Positive East?
As you said, I'm the counselling coordinator, so I sort of lead on the counselling support service. So that means that I look after a team of 12 volunteer counsellors who are vital and essential to our service. So we're really grateful for those counsellors. And as well as coordinating and looking after the volunteers, I do myself some one-to-one therapeutic work. So I'm split between doing some administration and managing, as well as doing therapeutic work. I tend to do the clinical assessments for new clients as well, where we just have a look at the issues and then kind of get it together an idea of what the goals are for the client. So that's kind of the role. It's sort of 50% clinical work and 50% sort of managing the service.
Great. So, Andre, tell us, what have you got for us today? What do we need to do to keep ourselves happy and sane during this very difficult time?
Okay, so, I mean, in a way, I might just kind of, if it's all right with you, just kind of go into it, because I've got a little intro, as it were. So I'm gonna do that now. And I think we can probably all agree that stress is an unavoidable part of life. And generally, we are able to manage it at low level impact. In fact, we're biologically coded and designed for a stress response to life. However, how we perceive stress, how we react to stress, and the amount of time in which we hold on to stress very much determines the level of impact upon us, which can be anywhere from sort of mild to low level, all the way up the stressometer to sort of chronic stress levels. And that's where we get into big trouble. And that's what we're going to look at today. And right now, as you were saying, in this time of COVID-19 and this pandemic, stress levels in particular are rising in unprecedented numbers, and understandably so. There is so much uncertainty in the air right now. So much feels chaotic and unsafe, and so much is changing. And I think the effects and the impact of those changes, on top of all the other life stresses we have to cope with, is hitting us, a lot of us, in stressful ways. And make no mistake, all of us are affected. Perhaps in different ways, but the stress impact of this time is really finding its way into our lives, into our thoughts, into our emotions, into our behaviour, into our well-being. So more than ever, it's really, really important not only to recognise the impact and the potential effects of stress, but to also have at our disposal tools or skills that enable us to anticipate, to prevent, and to manage the wear and tear of this incredibly stressful period upon our mental and emotional well-being. I think all of us have probably heard ourselves say more than a few times, I'm really stressed, I'm really stressed. And we use the term a lot, but what we're not often conscious of are the ways in which we might ourselves be contributing to those levels of stress, or indeed aware of the things, and there's a lot of things we can do right now to help the mind and body recover and come back into a sense of balance. And that's really what we're going to be looking at in today's workshop. We want to properly understand what stress is, where it comes from, its effects on us, our responses to it, and what practical actions we can take to manage and minimize stress. If we have a better understanding or a wider understanding of what stress is, then we're in a better position to anticipate it, to recognize it, and certainly make better choices about the way we respond to it. So we really do need, now more than ever, I think, those skills We'll also be doing an anti-stress exercise technique which brings instant results. We'll be doing that a little bit later. I've got some slides and stuff to show you first. And then we'll also at the end have some time for questions and sort of sharing tips and techniques, because we all bring experience. We all bring our own experiences to this. So I want people to feel free to share. So I'm going to begin, if I can, just by sharing a quick demonstration that really makes a simple but powerful point about stress. And it's to do with this glass of water. I hope, can you all see this glass of water?
Yeah.
Okay, so normally when I show this to an audience, when I'm doing live workshops, you know, the audience assume I'm going to ask, oh, how is this glass half empty or half full? But instead, what I normally ask is, how much do you think this glass weighs? And the answers can be anything from 10 ounces to 50 ounces, whatever. But the weight of the glass is not what matters here. What matters is how long I hold on to this glass. Hold on to it for a minute, it's not a problem. If I hold on to it for an hour, my arm's going to start to sort of hurt and ache. If I hold on to it for a day, my arm will become numb and paralyzed. And yet in each case, whether it's a minute, whether it's an hour or all day, the weight doesn't change, but the longer I hold on to the glass, the heavier it feels. So we could say that the glass symbolizes our worries and our challenges and our stresses and our anxieties in life. And it shows how the longer we hold on to them, the heavier they become and the more they cause us damage mentally and emotionally and physically. So if we think about our problems for a short while, nothing much is going to happen. If we think about them for a bit longer, they begin to hurt. If we think about our problems all day, we begin to feel paralyzed and helpless. So we need to remember to put the glass down. We need to remember to put down those stresses, especially when we've finished with the day. You know, we come home or the day's done. And that's the time really just to let everything, just to put it down. You know, peace of mind, especially in today's climate, is way more important than driving yourself crazy, trying to understand why something has happened the way it did. We need to let a lot of stuff go. Eckhart Tolle, who some of you might know, he wrote a wonderful book called The Power of Now, which I highly recommend. And he said, sometimes letting go is an act far greater of power than continuing to defend or justify or hang on to. So we're often causing ourselves a lot more stress than we need to, unnecessary stresses, by not letting go of things we have no control over. And we often won't let go because we think we need or can control whatever that situation is. So if a situation, think about this, if a situation isn't serving you or growing you or helping you anyway, don't try to control it, let it go. Don't waste energy on people who make you feel like you are hard to like or love. And if a person shows their true colours, don't try to repaint them, because we can't. I think one of the most freeing and liberating moments in life is finding the courage to let go of what we cannot change. And if we learn to let go of what we cannot change, automatically we let go of a huge amount of stress that goes hand in hand with holding on. So, you know, a big tip, an opening tip for this workshop is we must remember to put our glass of water down. We have to let go of that stress. And I think that this little demonstration is a really good, really simple, but really powerful analogy about stress. So from there, let's just go a bit deeper and unpack stress a bit more. And we'll start off by looking at what the science says about it. So I'm going to share with you now my PowerPoint, and hopefully this is going to work instantly for me. So when we feel under pressure or threatened, the nervous system instructs our bodies to release these chemicals, and these produce physical changes that help us cope with a threat or the danger we see upon us. And this is called the stress response or the fight or flight response. So stress itself, we'll often say I'm stressed, and all we know it is as some sort of impact feeling. But actually, the essence of stress is it's a chemical, it's a hormonal response to an actual or perceived pressure or threat. And that built-in response we have is not a bad thing, because the fight or flight response was helpful in the past when we faced very, very different challenges to the ones we face today. So when a lion was chasing us down for its dinner, the cortisol and the adrenaline fired up in the body, and they helped us respond to that danger. And once the danger had passed, the chemicals would then start to reduce and we'd return to a normal setting. So historically, in the past, stress was much more of a physical or a bodily experience. So back then, when we recognized danger, the body would switch on its emergency system, chemically prepare us for fight or flight, flooding us with adrenaline and cortisol, so the heart rate would increase, the breathing would become rapid, pupils dilate, blood rushes into the muscles. We were pumped and ready and primed to deal with the imminent threat. Thousands of years later, we still have that same stress response, even though the dangers don't really exist in the way they used to. Today, we have very, very different challenges. The physical threats have reduced and the mental challenges have increased, but the body is still reacting as if the mental threats we see were the same as a lion chasing us. So the historical stress response worked well in the past, but it's not really suited to modern life. And if we fast forward to the stresses of this modern day, we see that the stress response isn't quite well adapted to the challenges we have. That could be a stressful life at work, that might be cyberbullying, it could be rising rents and house prices causing us stress, it could be the global pandemic, our money worries, the pressures to discover our authentic self and live this life we really want. So none of our modern day challenges really benefit from being able to run from a tiger or fight off an angry caveman. And equally, our modern stressors, they're not things that we can solve in an afternoon or a week. Increasingly, we're running on a kind of permanent high alert and we're not having the recovery or the downtime. So, and without downtime to recover, what happens is we're running around with this prolonged release of chemicals in our body, and that makes the blood pressure go up. The cardiovascular system has sort of more taxed to do its job. The immune system is weakened, digestion system struggles, we get headaches, we have trouble winding down, and it becomes harder and harder just to switch off. So when we're really stressed, all these chemicals designed to help us in the past to run away from tigers and cavemen are flooding the body, running around. And if we have that prolonged effect of that, it starts to damage us physically. It starts to attack our physical organs and such. So our stress response is doing pretty much the same thing it did for our ancestors who had very different challenges to the ones we have today. So a small burst of stress and adrenaline, that gives us motivation. It can work well for us and it gives us the energy for the challenges in life, but a steady stream of it can have serious effects on our health and our well-being, and it can take a really serious toll on the body. So let's just have a look. I'm going to go to the next slide. Just looking, as we say, coming to today, I've talked about what stress is, how it's in the body and how it helped us in the past. But today, as I said, we have very, very different sort of challenges, which are called stressors. And normally what I would do in a workshop is I'd have a sort of blackboard and I'd ask people to sort of shout out, you know, or tell me, don't have to shout, you know, the stressors that affect them particularly. But we haven't got that, we're not live, so I've just sort of written down the most repeated answers. And the ones in red, the top 5, those are, that researchers tell us, they're the top 5 challenges that cause us the most stress. Money, change or transition, moving, work, loss or death of a significant person, and divorce. But I think creeping up there and soon to be in there would probably be uncertainty. We live in such an uncertain world, you know, health, traveling, relationships, people, places and events. These are all things that are external that cause us stress. There's an internal stress that comes from the thoughts and the perceptions we have about all those challenges, all those things that we face. The way we think about those causes us an internal sort of, depending on the story we start in our mind about all those. And then if that gets too out of hand, that leads us into anxiety. So it's just quite good, I think, to sometimes think about what is it that actually causes me stress, just to have those and to know what those things are. And if we know ahead, if we're aware of what it is that stresses us, we're probably a little bit ahead of the game in that we're in a better position to do something about it. So, you know, not all stress equally is bad. But sometimes we'll say to ourselves, I'm stressed, I think I'm stressed. But actually what we are is just sort of nervously excited. you know, which is not necessarily a stress. So I just sort of did a little column here of sort of positive sort of personal stresses and negative personal stresses. So we can see in the positive thing, so I put starting a new job, and I put voluntarily as opposed to being forced into a new job. That can be a kind of thing that produces that kind of a good stress. Receiving a promotion, going on holiday, moving to a new home, starting a new relationship, having a child, retiring, learning something new. All of these are things that can be good stress impact. We look at the red, the other one, obviously money worries again, death of a significant person, major personal injury or illness causes a great deal of stress. Excuse me. Unemployment, losing a job, trying to find work, legal problems, being abused, neglected, ignored, dealing with the benefit system. I know and have spoken to so many clients who are unbelievably stressed by having to negotiate that. So that just gives you an idea of good stress and bad stress. When stress is good, and it's good to know, it's really good to know good stress and bad stress. So good stress is a burst of energy that basically advises on what to do. In small doses, where it's healthy, it has a lot of advantages, helps us to meet our daily challenges, motivates us to reach goals, we can accomplish tasks more efficiently, it can even boost our memory. And stress is also, as it was historically, a vital warning system. So it produces that fight or flight response when the brain perceives some kind of stress or danger. And then again, those chemicals, the adrenaline and the cortisol, they increase the blood pressure, the heart rate begins up, so we're ready for action, we're ready to deal with what's in front of us. And also, when it's good, the senses become very laser-like in their focus. So that helps us to avoid physically stressful situations, such as jumping away from a moving car so we can stay safe. We've all heard of those examples sometimes in a moment of high stress where, you know, a mother has lifted up a car because, you know, her child, it's on her child's leg or something, you know, and the adrenaline is flooding her completely. And we can do unbelievable things. So stress can be good. And it's good to know the difference, but sometimes we don't know the difference. It's hard to tell. Clients will say to me, I just don't know the difference between good or bad stress. And usually our body is a wonderful, wonderful barometer and a measuring stick, as it were, and it will tell us if we're struggling with too much stress, it will send out signals. So these are some signs to look out for. Inability to concentrate or to finish tasks. Perhaps we're getting sick more often with colds and things. And don't forget, if we're running with stress all the time and all those chemicals are in the body, they're attacking the immune system. So we're weakened. So colds and other stuff can start to come through. There might be body aches, other illnesses like autoimmune diseases flare up. So if you have arthritis, often people will say, and research has shown as well, that arthritis gets sort of magnetized when we're stressed, gets more and more painful. Headaches, when we get irritable, our mood, trouble falling asleep or staying awake, changes in appetite, and again, mood, you know, maybe we're more anxious or angry than usual. So again, just to be mindful of those signals, you know, rather than just sort of saying, I've got a headache, you know, and leaving it there, or I'm irritable, or I'm this. Like, hold on a minute, I've got some signals here, I'm stressed, you know. And again, once we become aware that we're stressed, as opposed to just operating out of the middle of it with no awareness, we can do something about it. So yeah, those are the signals. This is a quote that I just wanted to put in because I think it's funny, but I think it really, really spoke to me. Some of the worst things in my life never ever happened, or never even happened. And when I first read that, I thought it was true, and it made me think about the amount of time I had been in stress, thinking about things, the future. I wasn't in the present moment. My mind had drifted me into the future to worry about outcomes, to worry about things, to rehearse worst case scenarios. And the more you worry, the more the body's going to get stressed. When we're worried and everything, the mind says, oh, we're stressed. And the body says, we're stressed, let's release chemicals. So you can see the cycle. And yet I spent a lot of time, and a lot of us do, worrying about things that will never, ever happen. So I just thought that quote was quite an interesting one, and it's good to remember, you know, that a lot of the things we are stressed about, A, we cannot control, or B, are never going to happen. If you took out those components of the amount of time we devote to stress, or we are in stress, if we just took those out, you know, I'm not going to be stressed because worrying about things that aren't going to happen or may never happen, or I'm not going to be stressed over things if I can't control it. Why am I worrying about it? Why am I getting stressed about it? Take those out. I would lay money, I would guarantee that your stress load would probably reduce instantly by 50%, if not more. You know, so again, it's just being mindful of those ways in which we might be contributing and compounding the stress we've all, you know, the other stress that we've already got to sort of deal with. So moving on, let's just talk a little bit about the impact of stress. And stress affects us very differently, and our clients often say to me, I'm stressed. And so what I ask them, as a way of helping them to understand stress and have a better relationship with it, is okay, where does it sit in your body? Where does that stress sit? You know, I know for me, it's when I'm stressed, I clench my teeth and I get all a bit tight around the jaw, and some of my breath seems to get stuck here in the throat. So I sort of know, and my shoulders go actually as well, and my back gets stressed. There's quite a lot that happens. But the thing is, like I said, I recognize this stuff now. So as soon as I recognize, I guess stop, breathe, or whatever I do. But so yeah, these kind of questions, where does it sit in the body? How does it change or affect your mood? And what sort of changes in our behavior do you notice? For instance, in the body, like I said, you know, you might say, oh, you know, if you think about it now, where does stress sit in my body? Where is it? You know, and if you haven't thought about it, it's something good to think about. Is it the shoulders? Does it sit in the stomach? Do your toes curl? You know, or is it an ache? Is it a pain? Is it diarrhea? Is it constipation? Is it nausea? Is it dizziness? Chest pain, rapid breathing, loss of sex drive, frequent colds or flu? There's quite a lot of ways it can impact. So just being mindful of where it can sit in the body. So again, rather than just sort of saying, oh, something's wrong, I don't feel like my food, or I just feel a bit this, it's like, maybe I'm stressed, maybe this is a sign, maybe this is a signal of stress. In terms of our emotions, how it affects our emotions, stress and emotional changes. So maybe people will get depressed, or it triggers anxiety, there's anger, we're irritable, or there's a sense of restlessness. Maybe we feel overwhelmed or unmotivated or unfocused. Maybe we have trouble sleeping, or we're sleeping too much. Maybe it's racing thoughts, constant worries, making bad decisions, but generally also a loss of confidence in our ability to cope. That's what stress does to us. You know, sometimes, you know, we've all been delivered into this moment with a whole set of skills for life. You know, we've got here because we've had skills. But when we get stressed, when something bad happens or some threat, it's very easy to just detach from or forget about all those skills that we've got. And as the stress begins to overwhelm us, and as the thoughts start to get faster and faster and faster, as I say, we have this sort of loss of confidence in our ability to cope. Then we think we can't cope, but we actually can, but we just can't. We can't access that file in our mind, that resource, because the stress is sitting there. And in the same way with behavioral changes, could be something in appetite. I know again with myself, I like to pride myself on eating well and exercising and all that sort of stuff. When I'm really stressed, I wake up and think, you know what, I don't think I want to swim today. I can't be bothered to exercise, and I'll invariably find myself eating a tub of Haagen-Dazs, and I mean the whole one. You know, I'll eat the whole lot, not just a couple of spoonfuls. Subsequently, I'll feel sick afterwards. So I get into a cycle. But I say that was the old days. These days, when I notice that, I can sort of put a stop to it much quicker. But I think it's just really good to think about the impact of stress and how it affects me. As I said, it affects us all very differently. But you know, if we know how it affects us physically, if we know how it affects our mood, we can look out for those signs. Yeah. So that's that. I just move down to the next slide. That's just a visual for you. Stress in the middle, and it just shows the domains, you know, the mind, the body, the emotions, the behavior, and just how it can sort of impact. So, and that's something to be mindful of. Stress affects us physically, it affects us mentally, it affects us emotionally, it affects our behavior. Its reach is deep and far. So the more mindful we are of the ways, you know, of its reach, again, the more ready and prepped we can be to respond to it. So, continuing down, a question people often ask, sometimes when I work with clients, stress versus anxiety, what's the difference? And stress and anxiety, they share some of the same emotional and physical symptoms. That's absolutely true. Uneasiness, tension, that rapid breathing, the heartbeat increases, headaches, high blood pressure, loss of sleep, and so on. But they have very, very different origins. So generally, stress is a response to an external cause, an external person, place, and event. It could be a tight deadline at work. It could be having an argument with a partner, a loved one. But whatever it is, generally, it will subside once the situation has been resolved or we think the danger has passed. Anxiety, on the other hand, is our specific reaction to stress, and its origin is internal. So anxiety is characterized by, some of you might know this, that persistent feeling of apprehension or dread. And apprehension or dread very often is about situations that are not actually threatening and are not actually going to happen. So unlike stress, anxiety persists even after the threat or the challenge has gone. So anxiety, and it lives on in the mind, and it can get to chronic sort of levels. So it's something to really watch. So stress caused by the outside, anxiety is more of an internal dynamic. So I just wanted to get to that. Here's a little tip. Sometimes, you know, at the end of this, you think, God, he talked a lot. I can't remember any of it. And I want to, you know, when we find ourselves going into stress, I use this with clients sometimes. And they say, I haven't got time to do anything. So I say, okay, let's take this as an attitude. Stop. S-T-O-P. S for stop. It doesn't mean freeze. It just means just stop. Take a breath. This is when we find ourselves in this really stressful moment. Just stop. Take a breath. Take a breath in, a breath out. Do it 4 or 5 times. The breath will just bring you back to a sort of more peaceful state. It will just help you step back from whatever the stressful event is. And then observe what's going on externally. So you're watching the event, you're watching how this is making you stressed, but also noting what's going on within you. You know, my heartbeat's racing. I feel like I'm, you know, my muscles are getting tighter. I feel nauseous or whatever. So we're stopping, we're taking a breath, observing, and then we proceed, because just taking a moment to stop and stand back, what it does is it takes us away out of the sort of middle of the stress and just gives us an opportunity to re-look. And if we're looking from a sort of more peaceful place, it doesn't mean our problems and our stresses go away, but what we do in stopping for a few golden moments, we give ourselves an opportunity to maybe re-look at it, and we might get a different perspective on it. When we're caught up in it, sometimes, you know, where there's no way out, we're just in the eye of the storm, as it were. So stop. You know, it's just a little sort of tip technique I wanted to share along the way in this presentation. Let's get into the good bit. Management techniques. I realise I'm not going to tell you anything here that you don't already know about the benefits of exercise. But it's worth reiterating that exercise is an unbelievably wonderful antidote to stress, especially if your stress levels are high. Exercise is something you can do straight away. When we exercise, we're releasing happy hormones called endorphins. And the more we exercise, the more the body will release those endorphins. So you can describe an endorphin almost as a feeling, an example being, it's Christmas Day, you've just had your dinner, you're sitting down on the sofa, you're waiting for James Bond to come on, you feel contented, you feel peaceful, you feel relaxed, you sort of feel at peace and okay with the world. That's the sort of feelings that endorphins bring to us. So I think the more we exercise and the more we experience that feeling of endorphin release, I can promise you, even if you struggle at the early stages with exercising, once you get a taste of those endorphins, you will be motivated to exercise even more. So yeah, those endorphins bring us into a sort of easy, relaxed, peaceful state. So exercise is really important, not just for stress, generally for good health. If you haven't done exercise before, start with 15-20 minutes 3 times a week maybe, and just build from there. If 15-20 minutes feels like it's too much, then just do 5 minutes. Break it down into smaller little things, but just give yourself the opportunity of trying and just see. Don't take my word for anything I say. Try these things for yourself. It's only your experience of them that will really bring meaning to them. I'm just here telling you and reminding you of those things that we can do and the things we forget, as it were. So think about, if we're going to exercise, think about days that might work for you, you know, and think about times. So if you're a morning person, then maybe that's the time to do it. If you're an afternoon person, think about the times when your energy is at its peak. That's the time to do it. Because if you think about exercise outside of that, you might just think, oh, can't be bothered. You know, if you're an evening person and you want to do your exercise then, that's absolutely fine. Just leave enough time between the end of your exercise and when you go to bed. If they're too close together, you might find yourself lying there feeling well, but wired awake and wired and unable to sleep. So just think about that. Talking of sleep, get as much good quality sleep as you can. Lack of sleep affects our judgments, our mood, and our ability to generally cope. So sleep is regenerative, healing, repairs the mind, helps the body dilute all that stress we build up. Talking of exercise, again, if you sort of think, well, I haven't got equipment or I don't know what to do, Positive Beast, we have loads of resources and supports of our wellbeing offerings. We have yoga classes, we have exercise classes, we've got mindfulness classes. There's a whole load, a raft of things you can do. If you need inspiration or you need just to follow somebody so you know what exercises are good for you. Equally, there's hundreds and hundreds, and there's so much stuff on YouTube and online. So there's a lot out there for you. Stimulants. I often ask clients when they say to me, I'm completely stressed and wired, I ask them how much coffee they're drinking. And because they're tired and anxious and not sleeping well, or symptoms of stress, they're drinking more coffee to stay awake and stay alert. And they're drinking anything between 3 and 5 cups of coffee a day. And that's the very worst. And tea as well. They've all got caffeine, they're all stimulants, Coca-Cola, all that stuff. That's the worst thing you can do. Ideally, any sort of stimulant drink, maybe 1 or 2 cups a day, ideally, really before midday. We have to remember that all those chemicals we talked about before, when we're in a high state of stress, all those cortisol, all that adrenaline is cruising through the body. And then when we're drinking coffee or too much Coke or tea or whatever, that's the stimulant as well. So we're adding, we're compounding, we're putting ourselves into an even more sort of stressful state. So again, for smokers, I'm not here to make any judgment, but just to say nicotine is a stimulant any way you take it. So if you think, well, I'm all right, I vape or I chew it, it's still the same. It's still a stimulant, whether you smoke it, whether you chew it, whether you vape it. Which gets me on to my next point about sugar. Sugar is a stimulant. We all know how bad it is for us, but especially if you have any kind of inflammatory situation like arthritis going on, sugar is in almost everything these days, and it is having a devastating effect on our body. So really keep a close eye on the amount of sugar you're putting into your body. Don't forget also other stimulants like alcohol as well. They have, you know, extraordinary high levels of sugar in them. Drug use as well. Those drugs are stimulants, and research just tells us that long-term use of drugs makes users actually more sensitive in the long term to everyday stress. So just again, something to be mindful of. Again, diet. There's nothing I'm going to tell you here that you don't already know. What is a good, clean diet that is both stress busting and good for you long-term health? I would say, you know, you've got it pretty good if 50% of everything you are eating is either a fruit or a vegetable. Less fruit, obviously, if you're a diabetic. But you can ask yourself or think about that right now. Bring that to mind. What did you have for breakfast this morning? You got that in your mind? And as you look at it, was 50% of that fruit or veg? Now think about lunch, if you had one, again. Bring that to mind. Was 50% of that fruit or veg? And then thinking about last night's dinner. How was that balanced? Was 50% of that fruit or veg? So ideally, and I say ideally, it's not a sort of golden rule, but 50% of your total food or calorie intake should be fruit or veg. A good rule, again, especially when we want to give ourselves every opportunity to be well, so when we have to deal with stress, the body's in a good and fit state to manage it. And the body's going to be in a good state according to what we put in it, what we eat, excuse me, and what we drink. So a good rule is try and avoid anything from a bag or a box. Frozen veg is fine. Tins are okay, but just be mindful that their contents have often been heated to a point where they're nutritionally sort of dead. So what I try to do with my food is just try and think what's still got live energy in it. And that will usually be some either fresh meat or some vegetables or some sort of fruit. Ready meals, processed meals, they're not great for us. And interestingly, they actually tend to cost more than it does to buy fruit and vegetables, as it were. So diet is good. Another technique, it's a management technique, is asking for help. Don't struggle alone, especially if you feel overwhelmed. Sometimes just talking over our worries or feelings with a trusted person can really have a powerful releasing effect. So talk to somebody, and it might be a friend, it might be a family member. And if you don't have a friend or a family member, then go to your GP. Talk to your GP about it. See if you can get some sort of help. As many of you probably know, we have Positive East, we have psychotherapeutic and counselling services, to support people and help people. So do make sure you ask for help. Talking to someone else can also just give us a different perspective on it. So we might realise that things aren't actually as bad as we think they are just by getting to talk it out. So do remember to talk about it. And don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait until the body's ready to have a breakdown or we just feel we can't cope any longer, sort of thing. Sometimes we feel that asking for help is a sign of weakness, or we don't want to burden people and all that sort of stuff. But, we're talking about ways now, and it's so important in this time, I think, to really make sure that we know how to take charge of ourselves, we know what to do, and if we need to ask for help, then we need to ask for help, because we need to help ourselves. No one is coming to save us. No one's riding in on a white horse to save us from anything in life. The responsibility, whether we like it or not, for our well-being and to manage things like stress and anxiety, it really is ours. So we have to pick up that mantle, because the government, are not going to take care of our stress. Nobody's going to take care of it. That's our responsibility. So let's just move on to the last technique. We talked about exercise, we've talked about reducing stimulants, we've talked about diet, we've talked about asking for help. I just want to talk about meditation now, which I think is going to be what saves the world, personally, because I'm such an advocate of it. There are a number of different types of meditation out there. There's yoga meditation, there's Tai Chi, transcendental meditation, Zen meditation, body scans, progressive muscle relaxations. There's a whole raft of them. But the one I really want to talk about today, and the one I believe from my own practice and personal experience is a fantastic stress minimizer, is mindfulness. And mindfulness meditation is really very simple to do. And like many things that are good for us, it's dose related. So the more of it we do, the better and the greater the benefits. So what mindfulness meditation is, mindfulness meditation, it helps us into a neutral place of acceptance of whatever is happening in our life in that moment. So that means that it helps us respond to what is actually happening rather than what we think should be happening or what we think could be happening. And again, when we talked about the ways we sort of exacerbate our own stress, that's one of the ways we do it, because we often refuse to just come to a point where we have to accept what is happening and respond to that. We sort of deny it. No, this isn't right. It shouldn't be happening. This should be happening. That could be happening instead. And we're sort of in our heads about something that's nothing to do with what's actually happening in front of us. And this is what mindfulness does. It invites us to slow down, to use the breath, and just come to that place of stillness where we can just step back and then relook. And like I said, it doesn't change our problems. It doesn't make anything go away, but it gives us an opportunity to just see how we are in relationship to the stressor in front of us. How are we in relationship to ourselves? How am I in relationship to this whole COVID thing? How am I in relationship to this isolation, to all the stuff that we're facing? This is what mindfulness meditation does. So I think it's a really, really good technique. And I think for the last few minutes of this this presentation, what I'm going to do is ask you, we're going to just do a little experience of it. Talking about it is great, but again, it always comes down to the experience of something. So I want to share this meditation with you. Let's do some breathing together. And I just invite you for the last few minutes of this workshop, I want you just to put aside anything, any notes you may have been taking, and if you're holding a cup or a pen, whatever it is, just put that to the side. I'm just going to do this breath meditation exercise. So sitting with legs uncrossed, sitting evenly in the chair, just making full contact with the floor, feet making contact with the floor, and weight evenly distributed wherever you're sitting. When you're in that position, I just want you to close your eyes and I'll start. What I want you to do is just take a nice deep breath in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, and then exhale through the mouth. 2, 3. And we're just going to repeat that again. Just try another breath in. And then just exhale. Blow it out. Blow it all out. And then another breath in. 2, 3, 4. And then exhale it out. So now with this breath, as you breathe in and out, I want you to begin to feel the air coming in through the nostrils, feeling the air in the back of the throat, and then exhaling. So breathing in, feeling the inhale, feeling the freshness, the coolness of the air in the nostrils and the back of the throat, and then exhaling, feeling the warmer air coming out through the mouth as you exhale. On your next breath in, feel the air coming in through the nostrils, down the back of the throat, and try and bring it down even further into the lungs. Deep, 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 in, breathing in, and then exhale, blow it all out. Blow, 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 let it go. And so with the next breath in, try to go to a count of 5. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then exhaling, slow and easy, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, on the next breath in, just try to expand your belly, expand the abdomen with this in-breath. Don't try to expand the chest, just try to really expand the belly and the abdomen. Really let the abdomen expand as we breathe in. Feel the belly pushing out. And then as you breathe out, when you're ready to breathe out, shrink the abdomen, just really bring your belly button as close as you can to the spine. As you breathe out, feel this belly button moving towards the spine. You can even on the next breath, put your hand on your belly, just feel the abdomen. Feel it expand with the breath. In, and then feel it contract, going back towards the spine with the breath out. Next breath in, see if you can expand your hand even further and then contract. Breathing in, feeling the hand pushing out. Breathing in all the way, push, 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 and then let go. Breathe out, breathe out, breathe out. The next breath in, see if you can draw the breath in beyond the nose, beyond the throat, beyond the lungs. See if you can get a sense of that next breath in, going all the way into the stomach. All the way into the stomach. And then breathing out. And as you breathe out, with every breath out now, I want you to just relax the shoulders. Let the shoulders go. Let them drop, let them drop. Breathing in, belly expanding, pushing out. Breathing out when you're ready, belly coming in towards the spine, shoulders dropping, letting go, letting go, letting go. And just breathing, and just letting go. And staying with the breath. You may find thoughts drifting across the screen of your mind. Don't worry about those. Just return your attention to your breath, following every breath in and every breath out. Every time you're tempted away by a thought, just notice that thought and come back to the breath. Breathing in, feeling the expansion, breathing out and letting go, feeling the shoulders relax and relax and relax. Giving yourself permission in this moment just to drop everything, let it all go, let everything wait in the wings. Just be here with your breath, breathing in and breathing out. Just staying for a few moments in that stillness that our breath invites us into, when we give ourselves permission just to step back from the busy mind, step back from all those worries, all those concerns, all the to-do lists, all the things we should have said and all the things we may be anticipating for tomorrow. Leave all that outside, leave all that in the wings just for these few moments. And just, can you be present? Can you just be here, breathing, just you in your body, breathing in and breathing out. And so when you're very ready, just gently opening the eyes and bringing your attention back into the room, just coming back to us right now. So I realized that was a very small little example of mindfulness. And if you're wondering why I use the breath, I use the breath because the breath is always here. Unlike the busy mind that takes us into all those stressors, takes us into the past to worry about things that are done and set and can't be changed, and it drags us into a future to rehearse things we're worried about. But the breath is always here. We can't take a breath in the past, and we can't take a breath in the future before we take a present breath. So the breath can hold us like an anchor. And when I said that stop technique, stop, take a breath, that's the sort of breath I was talking about. Just follow your breath and allow it to bring you back to a space where we can calm down, where all those stresses can just begin to settle, all those chemicals can begin to settle, and we can look back out at what's causing the stress. Maybe with a different perspective, maybe with a sort of renewed kind of lens that we're looking at it through. So meditation, and people say to me sometimes, yeah, it's great, love the idea, but I've got no time at all. I'm busy. You know, so even if you can't formally take 5-10 minutes to sit and meditate, do it in the shower. Let your shower time be about the shower rather than the day's events. When you're sitting on a park bench, be in the park and just let yourself be in the park, you know, with your breath, and listen to the trees rather than, you know, most of us, we're not really where we are. We're only there in body, but we're not fully there because we're caught up in our worries. We're caught up in our stresses. So the breath is one of the most powerful, most amazing tools that we can use to manage our stress. So that brings me to the end of the slideshow, and just some final thoughts there, final things about learn to manage our stress before it manages us. That's the point. We want to be armed, we want to be ready, we want to be able to anticipate stress. If we know it, if we understand its impact on our thoughts, on our behavior, on our emotions, we're in a better position to fight back. Not even to fight back, but to respond. So it's about keeping it in check. We can't get rid of stress. It's part of life. Stress is normal, and a little bit of stress can help us feel alert, motivated, focused, energetic, and excited. So what we want to do is just take positive actions to channel this energy and those chemicals effectively, and we will find ourselves very much performing better, achieving more, and feeling better mentally and physically. So that ends the presentation today, and I'm happy now to move into any questions anyone might have.
Right, Andre, that was really fantastic. Some really useful tools and tips there. That was the first time I've done mindfulness, and I certainly, even that very short time, feel much better than I did before we started. I know that mindfulness is a big feature of, as a service is provided by Positive East. If people want to continue and develop their mindfulness, can they do that through you and Positive East?
Absolutely. I think for those that receive the newsletters, there's usually information and links too. But if people want to just email me directly, andre.smith@positiveeast.org.uk, I will send you the links, and I will add anybody who's interested in those mindfulness meditation sessions. I will add those to them to the reminder list. So half an hour before each session, which is on a Wednesday at 12:30 and Thursdays at 5 p.m. I can add you to that list, so you get the reminder, because it's easy to forget. So absolutely, yeah, everybody is absolutely welcome. I'd encourage people actively to really do it.
Excellent. And before we finish and we go into our Q&A, if people are watching today and they feel that they would benefit from some form of counselling, how can they access this service at Positive East?
Again, so counselling, if they're a client already, they can email me directly, or even if they're sort of in communication with one of our colleagues, just you can ask any staff member, you know, can you refer me, can you put me in touch with Andre or whatever. You can contact me directly, or you can get in touch with me via another staff member who might be helping you with something else. So yeah, and then what would happen if you want counselling support? I'll just do a very quick assessment with you, and then after that we can allocate you a counsellor and get you the support that you need.
Great. I'd like to thank you so much for a really fantastic presentation, and I hope that it's been of use to you. And if any of you want to access any of our services, please get in touch with any of the team here at Positive East. Andre, thank you very much indeed.
Welcome.